Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Starseeds and Lightworkers Collective. My name is Crystal, and tonight we have a very, very interesting topic of discussion. Tonight we're going to be talking about remote viewing. And I think a lot of people, especially if you're going to be, someone who tunes into this sort of show, you probably have a passing understanding of remote viewing, and people have heard about it, and there's a lot of interesting directions that this can go in. So we're going to be starting off talking about remote viewing in its pure form, but I'm sure as the night goes on, we are going to be going into very, very uncharted territory, because that's really what's happening here, and I'm really looking forward to it, because it takes everything that we've all been discussing, like everything we've been talking about on the show and the different guests and all that kind of stuff, and it goes in all these different directions, and it can be applied, in many different ways. So tonight we are welcoming back our favorite and most lovely Miss Angela Levasseur. She has been on the show a number of times, and she's such a wealth of information, and we just absolutely love her here. Hearts. So, and she's going to be talking to us about her experience with the remote viewing. And she's also going to be telling us a little bit more. We have some slides that we're going to show as well. Just before we get started, though, I just wanted to let everybody know that there's so much talk about AI Atlas. Everybody's talking about 3i Atlas, and it is such a hot topic right now. And of course, we are not going to miss it on the fun. As some of you know, 3i Atlas will be passing around in view. I think it's behind the sun now, and it's going to be moving in view around December 19th. So we're already in like mid-November, more or less. And by that time, by December 19th, it should be in full view. So we are going to be doing a show on Friday, December 19th, to talk about 3i Atlas. And we're going to be having a number of guests, including Miss Angela Levasseur. We're going to be having contactee Miss Susan Johnson, who's also going to be speaking with us. We're also going to be welcoming we're going to be welcoming some people from MUFON, and hopefully we'll get an astronomer or two to come help us and talk with us about this whole topic, because it is absolutely burning up. And we invite you to be a part of us and to discuss it with us as well. So let us know what your feelings are, what you think it is, what you think it isn't, and join us on that Friday, December 19th, to talk about this. So just putting it out there. Also, if you're new to the show, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Please, it helps the channel. And just basically subscribe to the YouTube channel. And also, one thing I also let people know, when you, a lot of people sign up on the meetup page, which is good, but you should also sign up on the YouTube page, because I know that if you're subscribed, you will get, and every time I post the video that's going to be going live, you can put your click on that to like notify me, that sort of thing, because that also helps us as well. That helps the algorithms to know that we have some hot stuff to talk about, and it helps us to sort of get more exposure and to bring all this information to more people. So if you could do that as well, so not only just put your registration down and Meetup, but also put down your registration and ask to be notified when videos go up, that would help us a lot. So without further ado, we are going to be speaking with Angela Levasseur. As I said, she's been here on the show a number of times, and she's absolutely a wealth of knowledge. And what's interesting is that she is also a channel, and she has many skills channeling, and she's a psychic medium, and she's well versed in Reiki. She's done it all. And I find it interesting because as we're exploring the ideas of remote viewing starts off on one end of the spectrum and seems to sort of go back and forth between the science and the psychic, and back and forth, the paranormal, the science, and even just like if you want to sort of take it to the next level, quantum physics, because there's a lot going on there. So without further ado, I would like to introduce to you Miss Angela Levasseur. Hi, Angela. How you doing?
Hi, how are you this evening, Crystal? It is so great to be back on the show again.
Yeah, that's
And
great.
yes, I love the way that you introduced remote viewing because you
Mhm.
are absolutely correct. It goes between the psychic, the quantum physics, and telepathy, and all around the world, basically. So,
Exactly.
and to other worlds as well,
Exactly.
places
That's
that
the
are very
thing.
well hidden.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we look at presentation, did you want to sort of like I said, some people may have a passing understanding of what remote viewing is. Did you want to sort of give us your perspective of what remote viewing is, how that maybe compares with what we've heard, what other people have heard, and maybe even your own personal opinion? What is remote viewing?
Well, for myself,
Hmm.
remote viewing, and it's funny because I did not realize that I was remote viewing when I started doing it.
Hmm.
Because I read tarot cards, what I was happening was while I was reading to people, I would literally get what looked like a snapshot picture that would come into my mind.
Hmm.
And I would literally describe this picture
Hmm.
that I was seeing to individuals. And I found out it was, yeah, for me, it was confirmation that they knew I was actually tuning into what it was that they were a part of at some point in their life. And then I happened to start realizing this is actually a section of remote viewing because what it is literally taking your body and your mind and zooming out
Hmm.
into another place and time. It doesn't matter whether it's here on this world or whether it happens to be on another planet or another world altogether, or even someplace like 3 Eye Atlas,
Hmm.
because essentially it's removing yourself from this time and place and just being able to picture yourself there or have that picture come to you. And I have essentially been able to refine that skill. I have not had any formal training for it. It is something that just happened. And
Oh.
as I started to realize what it was, I started to refine more of it
Hmm.
myself. And as my telepathy and my psychic skills grew, my abilities to remote view became stronger.
Okay. Wow. That is really impressive. And it doesn't surprise me because you do have the gift, right? So having the gift already sort of puts you ahead in that sense. For those who, let's say, are looking at, for example, the scientific, what the CIA or what, scientists would look at, they're basically looking at a way to find intelligence, a way to find intelligence, and it's basically done through targeting. So, whereas in Hollywood, they sort of give this sort of very, very sort of, especially when you watch something like Stranger Things, which is talking about stuff like, some of the experimentation that people were doing in that program, like MK Ultra and all that. So that's a whole other story for like later on down the line, but it's also a matter of giving coordinates. And so what a person does is that they sit down in a room, they give and a person gives them coordinates, and based on that, they either have a picture in an envelope or in a box, and the person is asked to relax, turn their mind off, and to start looking and trying to draw or get ideas of what is being asked of them. So, coordinates meaning literally coordinates, like, longitude, latitude, all that kind of stuff. And so that's something that's very interesting. And it's something that was started with the CIA and well, started at Stanford Research Institute, but we'll get to that. But it's also that's how it was done in terms of actual scientific study. So that's kind of interesting. And I think what I find interesting about the whole thing is that sometimes people didn't even know. A lot of people who were, let's say, chosen by the program didn't know that they were so-called psychic. And some people just sometimes have the gift, and so someone like yourself, Angela, you have the gift, and so it's really interesting. Is there anything
It's
else you
also,
sorry.
yeah, that's okay. No,
Yeah.
perfect timing.
Hmm.
It's also interesting because I do practice with a few people in a telepathy group,
Okay.
and very many times what we will do, and this is something that even our listeners can do if they want to, because every person is born with psychic abilities.
Hmm.
The issue is that we are not taught that from a young age. We do not refine them. We do not use them. However, we all do possess these gifts. it's just a matter of waking them up.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that we do in our telepathy classes is we will either take turns drawing numbers, drawing pictures. So I mean things like, diamond, heart, triangle, squares, things like that. And as we concentrate on it, we send that message to the other person. And this is very much what remote viewing is to a degree, except it's once you have gotten past that initial unknown factor where you can zoom in even further. And I do find that it is something that the telepathy practicing does help as well.
Mm-hmm.
And perhaps later on, we will make a little practice here with all of our viewers.
Course.
And I have something in mind actually that I would like to try and
Oh,
do a little experiment with them.
okay.
So we can certainly do that. And maybe we'll do it about halfway, and that way
Sure.
we can send that information out to them and then see what kind of answers we get coming back.
I think
It'd be wonderful. It does work, because who knows, we might have some other remote viewers out here that don't even know what gifts they have.
Exactly. I think that's an excellent idea. And before we get started on the presentation, I wanted to just sort of answer some questions. Actually, I knew it tonight. The questions are going to be coming in fast and furious. So let's get started with that. So I have here.
No, I cannot read mine.
No.
Not yet. I'm working
on it.
Not
yet. Working on it. Okay. So I have a question here from Jenny Joswiak, 123. She says, is it possible to remote view into the future? And I've heard of something, but I wanted to hear what you have to say. Yeah.
Yes, it absolutely is. However, keep in mind that we each have our own future and we have multiple timelines. So the future that you are looking into may not be the future that you actually wish to look into. So you want to look at your highest timeline as well. You can also look into the past. I've also seen past lives. So when you are remote viewing and when you are looking at past lives, essentially you're taking yourself, and it's similar to astral traveling, where you are literally taking yourself and putting yourself or your mind into another place and time.
Okay, wow. And you know what? That in many ways has some implications, because if you think about it, and it's true because we have multiple timelines, and then if you can remote view into either the future or the past, then that also means is that what we consider quantum jumping then? Is that what that is?
It would be quantum jumping. Yeah. Technically, it would be quantum jumping.
Yeah. And it also means that we have the power. We don't need to be, H.G. Wells. It's a great book. The Time Traveler. That's nice, but we don't even need to do that. We can really time travel in our mind.
Yes,
what do you think?
We can. Yeah. We absolutely can time travel in our mind. And anybody who's ever had past lives, I mean, that is your past. It was a lifetime that you lived legitimately. So to keep those things in mind, and that obviously has shaped your knowledge for your future.
Yeah. Wow.
And it's also provided you gifts. And by looking back at those, this is something people don't realize right now. A lot of these solar waves that we are getting are helping us to remember what our pasts were and what our gifts happen to be. So when you see all of these great big spikes that we happen to have in the Schumann resonance, it's helping to benefit us all, because it's bringing up things that we've had in our past lifetime that our DNA has been having dormant, and it is actually waking that up so that we can begin to function as our higher vibrational selves. So a lot of people are waking up now with a lot of gifts that they never knew that they had before. And we are expecting some major solar flares within the next couple of days.
Yeah. And those solar flares also reactivate, and they sort of recalibrate our DNA. So
absolutely.
So a lot of people are feeling weird, or you're feeling kind of tingling, or there's stuff going on. We are all being reactivated. So yes, we're figuring out some of our gifts, but it's also a matter that we're coming online, as it were. So all that so-called junk DNA is just dormant. It's just being reactivated and coming up online. So I think that's going to be very, very interesting times, because when you talk with people who have had contact with different alien groups, nobody talks with their mouth. Everybody's sort of,
it's all telepathic.
It's all telepathic.
Yes,
You
it
know what
is
I
all
mean?
telepathic. Absolutely. And that is something that we are stressing. We were talking about AI, or sorry, 3i Atlas.
Mm-hmm.
That is a telepathic group as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that is how they will be making first contact with the individuals that are going to be intercepting them.
Yeah.
And
Um,
they've been forewarned of that, in fact.
oh, really? Okay.
Yes, they have.
Wow. Okay, great. I'm gonna get here Kelly Wacker. She says, "Is remote viewing the
Hi,
same?"
Kelly.
Hi, Kelly. Is remote viewing the same as having an out of body experience? Because I can't tell when it happens to me. That's interesting. Because how would you actually like frame it and say, okay, this is OBE, this is remote viewing. What?
Okay. There is a differentiation because I've had both. When you are remote viewing, you can literally just be sitting where you happen to be. You do not have to be in a meditative state, although it
Mm-hmm.
does help. If you are having an out of body experience, that is when your, I will deem it soul,
Mm.
is actually leaving your physical body. Very similar to astral traveling, where you are in a sleep state or a very deep meditative state. And that is when your body is actually staying where you are, but your soul is physically traveling.
Okay.
Um, Remote viewing, I've had both happen. So most times it's where I'm very conscious of where I am sitting, and it is just that my mind and my third eye and I it's almost like being in two places at once
Yeah.
with remote viewing.
Mm-hmm.
It really is, because I know physically my body is maintaining in where I sit right now,
Mm-hmm.
but my mind is literally moving to wherever it is
Mm-hmm.
that I'm looking at.
Exactly, exactly it. And I have here, I think we answered this already, but I'll still bring it up. I have here from Soma Lee Rose. Says here, I saw a lady on TikTok today that said she remote viewed Three Eye Atlas. Is it possible? But I think we already mentioned that.
Absolutely
Yeah.
possible. I have actually remote viewed 3i Atlas as well.
Mm-hmm.
I actually spoke to some of the beings that were there.
Yeah, absolutely. And even Kelly says here, I remote viewed Three Eye Atlas and I saw myself, I heard Three Eye Atlas, it is us, our future selves. That's an interesting take on it. What do you think of that? I've heard something of
There
that.
are a lot of different theories on what it is. I that is not what I was told,
Mm-hmm.
because 3i Atlas right now is a scout ship. It is also monitoring Earth to find out what our government and what the individuals who happen to inhabit Earth are going to do in the way of reaction.
Mm-hmm.
Are we going to believe it? Are we going to be friendly? Are we going to open fire on them? Are we going to be open
Mm-hmm.
to what it is that they're doing? But they are also here, and this is what I have been told in a channel as well. And I found this out a few months ago in the summertime. Actually, this is what when it happened to me. They have also said that they are raising our vibrations as well. So they are here to help do that. But
Mm-hmm.
people don't realize there are also accompanying ships with them. And
Exactly.
there have been many, many, many ships that have been in the area and within our atmosphere. We just
Mm-hmm.
don't see them.
Yeah.
We really don't. But
Yeah.
they've been there for a very long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're protecting us right now from
Mm-hmm.
the solar flares, from the CMEs, from the sun, because Earth is in a very strategic location within our galaxy, and they need to ensure, plus we are a major water world, they
Mm-hmm.
need to ensure that we remain where we are. So they are doing everything within their power for us not to destroy ourselves. And they
Exactly.
have actually, some of these other ships have actually deflected and neutralized when we have our lovely governments that have decided to use nuclear weapons.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. There's a lot of talk. Like there's a lot of stories you hear about how people are working at these missile sites and they're trying to do tests and all of a sudden this UFO will come down and doo, 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 like everything just stops working like all at once. And that's a big freak show because they come in, what's happening, and they turn back all on one at once. And also where they've also been getting involved is that I think we talked about recently about that story about how at Fukushima, when that
Yes,
happened.
yes, absolutely.
Yeah, you remember that? And they had done a reading of the water when Fukushima had first happened, and of course the radiation was sky high. And a lot of people were saying how they saw lights in the sky over Fukushima, they saw ships, they saw craft, all that sort of stuff. And when the scientists were trying to get an assessment of the situation, we're about to leave, they said, let's just check to make sure that we have the same reading. When they did the reading a second time, the relative radiation had gone down. And so a lot of people, and I remember that at that time, a lot of people were saying they saw a whole bunch of ships all over the place.
Yes.
And Fukushima and the town nearby and all that kind of stuff. They saw them and they're like, yeah, it's not a joke.
No, it's absolutely not a joke. I mean, they've been protecting us from ourselves for a very, very long time. I mean, we've talked about other specific Star Nation groups on the show before, but I mean, I do know of one particular group that has been on Earth for many years. They have active accounts on Twitter. They are actually very much aware of 3I Atlas, and they are rooting for us. And there is a lot of communication back and forth with them as well. In fact, if you at the end of the show, if you want the information, I can provide all of that info as well.
Sure, great. And moving on to a couple more questions before we move on. I have here LACC says suggestions on courses for remote viewing. I think you teach more or less, no?
Well, telepathy wise, it's basically a group endeavor. I mean, part of our slides will talk about some of the things that you can do with regard to remote viewing, but part of it depends on what your current level is, whether or not whether you know that you have any kind of telepathic or psychic abilities. If you've got abilities already, it's practice. 99% of it is practice, and that's it. And it's essentially just using those skills, because we lose them when we don't use them.
Absolutely.
Or when we're not taught that we have them, period.
Exactly. Yeah. But you know what, though? I think that people are starting to wake up to that, because it used to be, there was a time when people would be like, okay, no, don't talk about stuff like that. It's crazy. It's stupid. You don't want to be looked upon as a weirdo. And now a lot of people are starting to say, yeah, this is happening to me. Or they see that their kids are having special abilities and they're not trying to sort of, get rid of it and all that kind of stuff. They're just trying to say, okay, the kid has some abilities. Okay, let's see where this goes. And I think that that's why these kids coming up now, the alphas and all, like even the younger ones, these kids are going to be very special, because they haven't had it bred out of them, like beaten out of them.
That's
like us
right.
Gen X kids and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. I mean? Yeah. Yes, definitely. As if children of the day and age now are being encouraged to use their gifts and their things are not being hidden. Mind you, I will still say, and this is a precautionary measure, you have to be very careful and tell them, it's not something you go and share with your friends at school, because you might get laughed at and you might have this and that happen. But if they have close friends, or they could talk about it with their parents or people who are very close to them, then that's fantastic. I have some very, very good friends, and I know for a fact that they have children that do exhibit abilities. And in fact, the parents exhibit abilities as well. So the more that you have people that you can contact and you can talk about that with, the higher vibration you raise. And what people may not realize too is the more that groups like us get together and talk about these things, we actually raise the whole vibration of the collective and of the earth. So the more that we bring all of this together, the better we do for ourselves, and we raise our own excuse me. See, they don't want things to get out. We
say
raise
telepathically
our own vibration as well as that of all of the other individuals around us.
Exactly.
So it's very beneficial for everybody.
Exactly. And I see here that Bruce Cornett was echoing what you were saying. He says, you can learn to communicate with a close friend using telepathy. It just takes practice. And it's true. And you know what I find, what would be really cool is if you do telepathy with your partner. Because, your partner, that's very intimate.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Am I right?
Actually, I've experienced that. And that is literally what happens sometimes when you say, you finish each other's sentences.
Yeah,
that does happen. When you are very close to somebody and you have that tie, it's actually much easier. But yes, it does happen. In fact, the other thing that happens is many times, especially if you're empathic, you will pick up their emotions or other people's emotions.
Exactly.
So if you're somebody who's an empath, chances are you've got a lot of gifts that you don't realize that you've got.
Exactly. And I have something interesting here from Aldosaurus1. Can you talk about the techniques for reducing AOL? I'm not really sure what that is. or discerning between AOL versus intuitive certainty, like confidence.
I'm not
Yeah.
familiar with the acronym AOL
Well,
offhand,
America Online.
other than years ago.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, other than years ago
Exactly.
from AOL.
Maybe Aldosaurus, you can come back to us and let us know what you mean by that acronym, because I don't think it
Yes,
means
please. I'm
America
sure it's
Online.
something simple, but
Okay, and let's see. Let's move on here. Do do do. Okay, and I have here from. Okay, so I have another thing here from Susan Johnson. She says, "Here, finally, my dreams are more clear and I'm remembering more. I'm feeling that cosmic bliss sense of well-being slowly coming back." And so I think that's great. I think that that's very nice, Susan. I know that you often come to the show and you share with us, and we really appreciate that. So I'm glad that you're having that cosmic bliss and that it's coming back for you. And Susan is one of our contactees who will be joining us on December 19th. So again, please.
along with me.
Yeah, along with Angela. So it'll be a very interesting evening. So please join us, everyone. And let me just see here. Okay, I think this is one from Somali Rose. I'm wondering if you're talking about the pulse. She says here, or about 3i Atlas. Are we going to lose electricity when they come closer?
When 3i Atlas comes closer?
I think that's what she's
Not
referring
necessarily. Right now, you're actually more apt to lose electricity because our power grids right now are going to be undergoing this is the highest solar flare activity that they've had in, I believe it was 20 years. I had something that crossed my feed earlier today, because our outer electromagnetic Earth buffer is in very bad condition in certain spots, and we are literally undergoing, I call it a triple header, because we've had 3 very high magnetic solar flares that have come out to us.
Yeah.
Right now, they're saying within the next couple of days, we are definitely going to be having disruptions with our internet, with our electrical grids. I mean, there's actually warnings that are out right now. There is a much higher specific possibility with that at the moment than there is with 3i Atlas. 3i Atlas is not anything that is a threat to us.
No.
3i Atlas is actually here to help us and help the people on Earth. They are more of an observatory body at this point, and to help us raise the vibration and to look and see how our government's going to deal with first contact from an outside source.
Yeah, exactly.
Although I will say there are many, many sources right now that are still trying to say 3i Atlas is only a comet, or it is a big rock, or it is something else. And that's even with all of the proof that is coming
Yeah,
up.
really. And just to sort of touch upon again about what Angela said, it's not just one big clump was one group of aliens. It's an armada. It's an armada of different groups. Similar here on Earth, you have like the United Nations, well, for what's left of it, these days. But like, I mean, it's an armada. And there are many different groups that are going to finally come together in addition to joining the groups that are already here. So it's going to be very, very interesting. And I know some people are kind of scared, like, oh, you know what, they shoot at it. And I'm like, no. I mean, they are too technologically advanced for that. So whatever governments or nefarious types of groups are trying to plan, it's not going to happen. So that's it. It's a peaceful mission.
Absolutely. It is a peaceful mission. However, there was something that came across my feed from a very trusted source, and they've made it very clear that if the governments do decide to take, or, the militaries take some sort of action, they will take action back. However, they're more apt to disable weapons than anything else. It's not something that is meant to be an alien war. That is not what the premise behind this is, because these are peaceful people. And all they want is for Earth to realize what a precarious state we have put ourselves in. And especially with our sun and the CMEs right now, what kind of a state we're in. They are here to help us. You have to remember, there's 8 billion people that are here on our Earth. If we don't have outside help with some of the issues that are going on right now, we're not going to be here.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not only just the 8 billion people, it's also the wildlife and all the other sentient beings that are on this
Yes,
planet as well. Because,
100%.
like the animals, you know what I mean? One last thing before we go to the presentation, I have here Bruce said, Crystal, my late wife taught me how to communicate with her before she died, and that prepared me to communicate with her in spirit. It became annoying when she was talking to me. And I find that so beautiful because that really transcends time and space. Like love transcends time and space. Did you want to comment on that?
Well, because I do,
Yeah.
I also channel people who have passed over. However, people don't realize you can channel people who are alive as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's very much like telepathy. Bruce, you know what? It's a beautiful thing that you're able to keep in touch with your wife. I know it can be annoying, and it's kind of funny because literally it happens around where I happen to be as well, where we will get little people that come in and they start to chatter in your ear, etc. They just pop in, but it's a gift and it's wonderful because those individuals that have passed are always here. It's just a
Mm-hmm.
matter of us opening our minds and our hearts and our souls to listen. It
Mm-hmm.
has nothing to do with physical hearing. It is more of a telepathic, intuitive gift that we all are capable of having. It's just a matter of practicing it. That's all that it is.
Yeah.
And you can call those people to you anytime that you want. Anytime that you want to have a hug. We all have guides. We have loved ones that have passed on. We have ancestors that are here for us. And we've actually touched on a few of these things in other shows as
Yeah,
well. But
exactly.
they're always, always here. It's a matter of opening yourself to listening. Listen to the silence,
Mm-hmm.
to what is between the silence.
Mm-hmm.
That is a key. And that
Exactly.
is something that was channeled as well.
Okay. And one last thing before we go to the presentation, I have here Aldosaurus wrote back and she's AOL means analytical overlay. This is the intuitive error introduced during the remote viewing session, usually polluting results of a session. So I think it's sort of the things that, sometimes okay, so I get what the question is. So sometimes we think we're hearing the actual answer, but then sometimes it might be our own intuition or our own voice in our head that might be trying to get in the way and send facts and sort of take us off course. So how do we know? I think how do I know to trust that this is the actual insight that I'm getting from a remote viewing as opposed to my own ego saying blah, 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 and talking and that kind of thing.
Well, to answer that, there's a couple of different answers for that. First of all, anyone who happens to be of a higher vibration generally has started to realize where their ego stops and they do not operate in an ego-based vibration any longer. So anybody who is moving between a 3D and anyone who's in a 3D situation at this point is probably ego based. If you're in 4D or a 5D at this point in time where you are now serving and you have gone through much of your awakening and you have gone through a lot of your healing, then you are not going to be ego based and you are going to know. One of the things that people talk about are goosebumps or truth bumps once you happen to know situations. So if you happen to get those, then you are going to have a more direct answer. If you are second guessing yourself, ego based, because when you know something without a shadow of a doubt, it's just like your gut
Yeah,
feeling that essentially you know. The other thing is because a lot of the information that people are receiving when they are doing remote viewing is completely hidden from them prior to the sessions, you don't know what it is that somebody's doing. So it's not like somebody is putting another thought into your head. You're just simply being given this information. Once you learn to trust yourself, as we all should, then that is when you are operating from your true self and true being.
Okay. Oh, right. That really settles it. That's very clear. So, without further ado, I guess we'll start off with your presentation, and then we can take it from there. And I'll let you guide us
Absolutely.
along. Okay. So, thank you so much for your questions, guys. We're going to be we're right on time. Wow. We are like around at 8:30. So maybe at around like 9 o'clock we
Perfect.
can do that little experiment that you wanted to do. Okay.
Absolutely, we can do that.
Okay. Great.
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay.
So essentially, just with regard to the remote viewing, it's essentially the practice of perceiving or describing distant or unseen targets using your ESP or extrasensory perception, which used to be very, very common. I mean, if you go back into the 70s, ESP, that's all you ever heard was ESP.
Mm-hmm.
It is not tied to any kind of religious or spiritual backgrounds or beliefs, but it's a skill that can be learned and
Oops.
refined, as I said.
Oh,
Oops.
your sound kind of like faded out a bit there. Sorry, can
Oh,
you just
that's,
repeat that?
oh,
Okay, there you go.
sorry.
Yeah.
Is that better?
Yeah, it's much better. Can you
Okay,
repeat that last
don't quite
part?
know what that is. Um, it's this remote viewing is not tied to any kind of a spiritual or religious practice or belief. It is a skill that you can learn and refine, as I mentioned before. So practice, 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 like anything else. Essentially, it has always been around. It gained a lot of popularity in the well, let's put it this way, it's actually had popularity since prior to Hitler's time.
Oh, yeah, it's
um,
true, eh?
because they
Yeah.
actually had a lot of people that they were trying to have remote view. They wanted to have the intelligence, and it very many times has been a spy op
Mm-hmm.
type situation. But it is, and it was Cold War times essentially when it
Yeah.
was actually brought in. It was all the intelligence and espionage agencies and reconnaissance, and that's what it was originally brought in for. Um, Clearly that's not what my purpose was for, because I didn't even know I was doing it originally. But once I started to realize that these individuals had these additional capabilities,
Mm-hmm.
that's what they used them for.
Yeah.
So very sadly.
Yeah, but I also heard that during the Second World War, they had like Marcina Orsic. She was the one who was
Yes,
channeling the
yes,
people of Aldebaran, and it's the people of Aldebaran who responded to her, and supposedly they also worked with I can't remember his name right now, but he said that we had help during because people said, "How is it that the Germans were so
yes.
ahead and all that kind of stuff?" And I think that it was they said that we had help, and what they mean help, but it was about you could say channeling, but it was also remote viewing because they were able to see the other planet. Marina Orsich was able to see the other planet,
Yes.
to see these beings, and to connect with them. And this is why I was saying at the beginning that there's so much interconnectedness. There's so much sort of like crossing over because it starts in one way, but then it sort of makes its way back into other little things. So I don't know. I mean, yes, remote viewing is very, very clear, but at the same time, it can start off one way and then end up in another. Am I
Well,
making sense or?
you absolutely make sense. You brought up a very good point that we didn't touch on yet
Mm-hmm.
is people have to understand too, we are all interconnected.
Mm-hmm.
We are connected with each other. We are connected with the plants, the animals,
Mm-hmm.
the earth, etc., because we are all energy. Because we are energy, we have the capability. It's just a matter of being on the same wavelength as somebody else. But because I can generate my thought out to Crystal
Mm-hmm.
or to our audience, basically, we're all connected. And when I generate that out, the fact that we're all connected and you're all viewing me at the same time right now, that sends out a very, very strong signal. It's very much along the line of, I can't remember now who the individual was that did it, but where you can actually change the structure of water crystals for snowflakes
Oh yeah,
and the crystals of water.
Masaru Emoto.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I knew it was a Japanese
Yeah,
individual. I just could not
it's a
remember his
great
name
book.
offhand. But it's very, very well documented that when many people become together in the same area and you
Mm-hmm.
all concentrate, and I've seen it done. I've
Yeah.
actually been to an event where we did that. And it was absolutely beautiful. But that is the power of our minds together. That is why we are so strong together. Keep in mind too, because we are energy, we create our own realities.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, of course you can remote view,
Mm-hmm.
just like we can have telepathic connections back and forth to everybody else.
Exactly.
So
But what's also interesting is that it's our brains because and it doesn't mean that everything's in our brain because it means that the brain allows us to have the connection to the consciousness. And I
yeah,
think this is the part that
absolutely.
I find kind of interesting because I want to sort of see where this is going because I know a couple of weeks ago we talked about the Akashic records, and I mean, is
Yes.
this in some ways the Akashic records? And I don't mean to sort of go off topics. I know we're talking about remote viewing, but at the same time, remote viewing is a part of that. You know what I mean? Like it
Yes,
is
it
that
totally
connection.
is.
You know? What do you think?
Well, it's absolutely it is because everything is interconnected.
Mm-hmm.
And because we have simultaneous timelines and realms that are ongoing right
Mm-hmm.
now, yes, we have the ones that are from past, we have the ones that are going into the future, and we have the present.
Mm-hmm.
But you have multiple realities where there are several different versions of yourself
Mm-hmm.
all at the same time. It just depends on what step you are taking next as
Mm-hmm.
to which reality you are going to jump into.
Yeah. And in terms of remote viewing, though, because it has been around, I guess through history, because you have many shamans and sages that are able to remote view themselves, some with the help of chemicals, because I know that if a shaman is working with peyote, they can go into a whole other world, a
Yes.
whole other dimension. So that's
Yes.
another thing, and that's something else. So I don't know if I'm going to put remote viewing into that, because I know that definitely with MK Ultra and all those CIA programs, they did work with, unfortunately, giving people a lot of mind altering drugs. But that's another topic for another day. But this whole remote viewing thing really started with the Russians, didn't it? Like the Russians were really.
Yes, it
You want to?
absolutely did.
Yeah. Did you want to tell us about that a bit more?
Well, we had people like Yuri Geller that
Mm-hmm.
was part of the Stanford University. We
Mm-hmm.
had, oh my goodness, I'm horrible with names
Yeah.
here. Um,
But I think that
a
during
lot
the
of it was the psychic arms race, and
mm-hmm,
that was the, as you say, the Soviet scientists that
mm-hmm,
essentially started a lot of this because they were setting up their own programs because they realized that there were all different types of abilities that individuals had: telekinesis, telepathy, psychokinesis, remote viewing, parapsychology. And really, it was the USSR and the Russians that invested tons of
mm-hmm.
time and money into all of these different programs. However, they didn't necessarily do it with best intentions. They did it so that much of that could be used against other countries. And
Yeah.
that's the sad part of it.
Yeah, that is the sad part, because I can imagine what could have been, gleaned if they had. I mean, and I know that it was the height of the Cold War, and during the Cold War they wanted to sort of have the edge and everything. But imagine where we could have been if we had just sort of used that and the remote viewing to reconnect with different beings, and as opposed to just trying to get an edge on who has the bomb next, that sort of thing. You know what I
Yes,
mean?
unfortunately. Or where is the bomb located, or where is
Exactly.
something strategic located?
Yeah.
But there are people even now throughout history who have remote viewed and located many, many different items
Mm-hmm.
and stated that. I mean, even individuals that have mentioned with regard to underneath the pyramids.
Mm-hmm.
So it's certainly got merit. Um, it just depends on what people wish to believe. And obviously, the proof is in the pudding. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
when you start describing something that somebody else is totally aware of, and they go, oh my goodness, you're 100% correct, or
Mm-hmm.
you get verification from somebody through another method of what it is that you've said, then you realize that, yes, you are not making things up. You are accurate in what it is that you're saying
Mm-hmm.
and what you're doing. And unfortunately, we have been taught to disbelieve. Seeing is believing,
Mm-hmm.
but truly it is believe it until you see it,
Mm-hmm.
because that is what manifestation is about as well. And
Exactly.
we all have that capability.
Yeah, and what's interesting is I'd heard stories about how, well, first of all, I think that the Russians were always a little bit more open minded about that sort of thing. I think that compared to, let's say, the West, from what I understand, the Russians were a lot more open to the idea of actual psychic ability. And
Yes.
it was much easier for them to put forward these sorts of programs and to get funding, whatever funding they had, to do this. And it wasn't seen as, let's say, a joke or something like that. Whereas it was a very, very hard to for the even up until the very end with remote viewing in the United States. it was really sort of ridiculed, and it had a lot of like its detractors in the CIA, and yet Russians were just sort of like, yeah, just going along with it, and they didn't have a problem. And I think that's the reason why they were much more further ahead with that sort of thing. And I remember hearing about how I think it was I can't remember, the 1980 Olympics or whatever, that they said that they had told the gymnasts, see yourself right now in the future winning. You know, they told a lot of their
Yes.
athletes to
Yes.
start looking in the
100%.
future.
Yes. I
And
recall that.
you remember
Yes.
that? And they
I
were
do.
winning because the people said, you know, how come? My God, I mean, yeah, they get training. They're very good. They're very, you know, strong, and they have strict training. But it seems that using the mind to get certain results, seeing the target of winning in the Olympics and using that as a tool, mind using augmenting your mind and seeing yourself winning was definitely used by the Russians during the Olympics, and it served them well. So it shows that they were definitely ahead of the game. You know what I mean?
They absolutely were ahead
Yeah.
of the game. And even still, if you look at European countries and countries such as Europe, and in fact, countries such as Japan and China as well, if you look at the type of studies that they do and what their students do compared to what we have in North America, there is a huge, huge difference in the regimens, in the type of information that is brought forward. I mean, really, there is no comparison. And I think because of the way that they are taught, because they are much more open, mind you, I will say Europe in general has always been much more open
Yeah.
to any type of esoteric
Parapsychology, or yeah.
knowledge. Exactly.
Yeah.
But even esoterics, where Western civilizations have always poo-pooed it to a large degree. Even when you look at indigenous nations, indigenous are
Exactly.
more open than Western civilizations, because the Western civilization, for the most part, has been brought up and what's the word I'm looking for? We've basically grown up with the fact that none of this is possible, and we've been sheltered and put into these little tiny boxes and
Yeah.
said, no, we're keeping you stuck in here because we don't want you to know the knowledge, because
Exactly.
knowledge is dangerous.
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
that is not how other nations view it at
No,
all.
no, no. And it's a really, let's be honest, it's a matter of control, right? Because if everybody's out there, and I mean, you know, and everybody's using their abilities, then they don't have any control. So it's like look, I have nothing against religion, but in that sense, it's a new religion in the sense of having to control you. So I mean, don't take it the wrong
Absolutely.
way. Don't. I'm not anti-Christian or anything like that. I'm just saying it's just a belief system and how they can you know, use people's free will against them. Basically, that's just more of what I'm saying. But so that's Russia. And so if we're moving now to the West, it started, I think, in the 70s. Like it started with
Late
Stanford
60s
research.
and 70s, yeah.
Yeah. And did you want to sort of tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, there was a project called Project Stargate. Yes, much like what they talk about is Project Stargate on the TV show. A lot of what you are seeing, whether or not you want to believe it, is not actually fiction. It is real, and you know, different players, but still the capabilities are there. So essentially, a lot of the early experiences that they had were seeing at a distance. And it's been around for a long time. It was started at the Stanford Research Institute. The US government funded the programs to explore the intelligence gathering more so. So again, another PSYOP type
Yeah,
operation.
exactly.
And I hate to say it, but some of those, you know, Black Ops, et cetera, MK Ultra,
Yeah,
those programs, absolutely they exist. And
yeah,
some of them still exist, and people don't realize it. They can be very, very detrimental.
exactly.
So,
Yeah.
and even though that there were promising results for remote viewing, the sciences and the replicability and the grounding, basically they shut everything down. So I hate to say it, but the Western side basically quit way too early because they didn't have the tenacity that the USSR had. Remote viewing, though, has still continued. It's more military based and research and unfortunately sometimes gained cult followings.
Yeah.
So that's never a good thing. But a lot of the private researching that has gone on has essentially um, been where it's stayed at, because the military, unless it happens to be a very specific faction of the military,
Hmm.
you don't hear about things like this.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the UAP and UFO
Exactly.
research they
Exactly.
had. You don't hear about these things, but they
Hmm.
just still go on.
Of course.
And don't for a second think that it's not happening, but it's in much small. Oh, see, they don't want me to say anything
Yeah,
here.
there you go.
Smaller quantities
Hmm.
and very, very quiet
Exactly.
facilities, but it still goes on.
Yeah.
100% it goes on.
Yeah, and it's sort of the same thing they said about Project Blue Book. Well, no, we're shutting down Blue Book.
Absolutely.
We're no longer
Yes.
involved in UFOs, and yet here we are. So, like, I mean, I'm sure it's still going on. I mean, I know that the programs, I mean, I think from what I understand, the CIA was still funding it from, let's say, the 70s and 80s. And I think
Absolutely they were.
that what's interesting is that after the fall of the Russian, because really all of this was because they wanted to be ahead of the Russians. They saw that the Russians
Yes.
were doing it. And they said, okay, well, we have to do
Competition.
it too, you know? And so it was always sort of like, trying to sort of one everybody else. But the thing is that after 91, when the Russian, communism fell, it no longer seemed, viable to have it. And I know that it's at that point when they start to have cracks in the system, and a lot of aspects of the CIA were sort of, were against it. So they're saying that the actual remote viewing ended in 95.
Well, they
But
say that it
they
ended.
say it ended in 95, but I don't believe so. I really don't believe so at all. And I know there's some sort of project somewhere, or, that people are in some basement
Absolutely, there
somewhere
are.
and they're, strapped to some chair and doing stuff like Looking Glass or whatever, and
Yes.
doing these programs. What do you think? Yeah.
No, I 100% agree with that. I do know of a few different groups that I am in where we have discussed things along this line. And yes,
Hmm.
a lot of these things, as I said, they're privately funded. If you
Hmm.
have the right backing for it, you have the right scientists for it, and
Hmm.
it just depends. Now, some of them fall under the guise of experiments that they are doing where they might
Hmm.
recruit different individuals, but you might not realize that's exactly what it is that they're recruiting you for initially.
Exactly. And you know what's interesting? I'd read somewhere, and I mean, I don't know if this is hearsay or whatever, but I'd heard somewhere that China was doing experimentations where they were going into classrooms and asking teachers, show us your kids that seem to have a lot of psychic ability. And they're finding children at a very young age of psychic ability. Now I can hear already the sort of like the music of Stranger Things coming in here. But like, I mean, it seems that they're working on that because they're an emerging government, and they're looking to sort of have, catch up, as it were. And I think that that's also I think it's going to be a lot bigger in China as well, and other governments that are trying to so-called catch up. You know what I mean?
I 100% agree. I heard that study as well, and I did see
Yeah.
some backup for it. The other thing that they are starting to understand now, to a much larger degree, is the spectrum of autism, that many of
Yeah.
these children that are autistic are really gifted and they
Mm-hmm.
have specific abilities. If you look at the telepathy tapes, it's a wonderful presentation of just some of the abilities that children have. And it's interesting that we're talking about children because children have not been tarnished the way that adults have
Exactly.
been, because they in their youngness and in their freedom
Yeah.
have not had that outside influence to say, you can't see this, you can't do this, there's
Yeah.
no way that you're allowed, you need to conform.
Mm-hmm.
They've been allowed to actually maintain that freedom, that ability that we all start with when we are very, very young and generally exhibit, but it's shut down once you get to a certain age. So
Yeah.
usually around the age of, 7, 8 years
Exactly.
old is when, once we start going to
The school.
school and
Exactly.
we're being told, no, this is the way that things are. Here's the little box that you're going to fit in.
Exactly.
And you lose
Mm-hmm.
all the abilities that you literally started with.
Yeah. So you just, shut up and conform. That's basically what that comes down
Absolutely.
to. And I mean that,
Absolutely.
and I really mean that.
Our way or the highway.
My way or the highway. But also what's interesting, and I know, and I've mentioned on the show before, is that I like it when I see people that I know who have young children and they're sending them to these schools which are more alternative schools. And these alternative schools are not teaching kids the way that we were taught, like the sort of
Yes.
Victorian, clamp down type of like bred it out of you, all that kind of stuff, that sort of Gen X type of nightmare. A lot of the young kids now are having a very, very different approach to education. And I think that it's that kind of education that will allow these kids to be that new generation, that whole new diamond crystalline children who are going to be, having a very, very different approach. So for them, even though we're talking about remote viewing tonight, for them, it's just going to be easy peasy. It's not going to be something that's going to be so, okay, well, you have to sort of like switch over to do like, okay, yeah, now you're doing remote viewing. No, it's going to be something. And I think this is what's interesting about this conversation tonight is that, yes, we're talking about remote viewing, but I think it's also, I think if you're coming at it from a purely scientific view, you might be like, what are we talking about? What are you ladies talking about? Because, this is not the remote viewing. This is not like, block by block. But I think because we are a channel that deals a lot with the spiritual aspect, we can already integrate the remote
Yes.
viewing. You know what I mean?
Yes. And
Yeah.
and I totally agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
It is a much more widely accepted view at this point. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
face it, back 20 years ago, if we
Yeah.
were talking about remote viewing, if we were talking about psychic abilities and intuition and channeling, we would have all been ostracized. They would have come and figured out where the heck we lived and probably come and taken us away. It is much more open now and much more allowed.
Mm-hmm.
And it is going to be the way of the future. Telepathy is a very, very well known ability.
Mm-hmm.
It's just something that we need to practice more. So, much like you see on Stranger Things or you see in other classrooms, I mean, if you look back to the 70s, they had a lot of kids that were there at one point, and they were concentrating with their mind. They were bending spoons. They were
Mm-hmm.
looking at um, shapes and figures that they were able to pick up on. It's really not any different. It's just it was far ahead of its time at that
Yeah.
point in time.
Yeah. And one thing that I'd heard that was, I remember watching this documentary actually with Roger Moore, and it was in the 90s, and I tried to find it on YouTube, but I couldn't find it. And I remember reading
They
about
probably
how
pulled it.
they probably pulled it. Honestly, I'm going to tell you something. I was looking for all these documentaries that I remember seeing on YouTube all this time, and all of them are gone. And I'm like, oh, okay. But I remember specifically in this documentary that they had the Russian embassy at some point. I think it was in Russia. I'm not sure. And it was right next to the American embassy. And they actually had people in the Russian embassy trying to focus and send their energy to some of these American diplomats because they were trying to make them sick or kill them and all that kind of stuff. And it reminds me of that movie way back in the 80s with Dennis Quaid called Dreamscape. You remember Dreamscape?
I remember that
And
movie.
you
Yes,
remember, and
I do.
it's funny at the time. I just thought, oh, kind of a cool movie. There you go. But in preparing for this presentation with you tonight, I said, wait a minute, that's Dreamscape. They were trying to actually
Yes.
affect people through remote viewing. I mean, I know it's a dismal topic, but can you sort of touch upon that just a little bit?
Well, I mean, it's no different than telepathy in the
Mm-hmm.
way that we can project our thoughts over to other individuals. I mean, the other thing is that because we are all interconnected, when we interact with other individuals, we essentially have ties or energy cords that do develop. So literally, this is not to scare anybody, but the fact that I am right now out here with, 80 to 100 people, I am getting cords that are developing even through social media from myself to you guys or from you to me, which
Mm-hmm.
means I am absorbing your energy, whether you realize it or not. And I know it sounds really strange, but it's absolutely true. So if you think about it, these individuals that may have been sitting in the USSR embassy and we've got the American embassy on the other side. If you want to do something for nefarious reasons
Mm-hmm.
and you are all projecting the same energy,
Yeah.
it has a compound effect because it's not just one. When you get the energy of several people together, it's like having a ball of fire essentially, and you
Mm-hmm.
can project that information out. So it's no different than the little experiment that we're going to do in a little bit to see whether or not you can pick up and you can project back to me what it is that is going on.
Mm-hmm.
So, It is something. We are all interconnected. You can't see the lines, but we are.
Yeah,
We're energy. Energy
exactly.
only changes form. It only transforms.
Yeah,
It moves away.
perfect. And just to sort of before we continue, um, when we look at stuff like that, it makes me realize that you can definitely try to do that sort of thing, but if you know that whatever you do comes around, eh? And like, I mean, it's
Oh,
not. I
100%.
mean, you
Karma
you
is
can nothing's stopping
100%
you,
real.
but like, I mean, think twice. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
no negativity, please, guys. I mean, I know I have a very, very strong team and I'm very protected
Yeah.
because people have tried to do some really nasty things. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, please don't do that.
No.
We are a very, very benevolent group
Yeah.
here, and um, we do not wish ill on anybody. We
No.
are totally love and light and positive vibrations here.
Exactly. So, getting back to the remote viewing, there are different people, like major figures in remote viewing, that were very instrumental. Did you want to sort of go through that with us? Because I know it's not, it's not comprehensive, and there's a lot of people that were there, but for what it's worth,
Sure, I can name off just a handful of them
sure.
and some of the different things that they did.
Mm-hmm.
So we had a gentleman by the name of Hal Puthoff,
Mm-hmm.
and he was a physicist who turned into a parapsychologist of all things, which is a pretty big difference there.
Mm-hmm.
And he brought a lot of the scientific um, RV research into play, and he co-founded the Stanford Research Institute. So he was very instrumental with that,
Mm-hmm.
in with a gentleman by the name of Ingo Swann, who we will chat about in a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
There were a lot of government contracts that played a role in this Stanford Research Institute, and it was CIA and DIA funding that actually helped out with the remote viewing studies. There was the quantum connection that was actually discovered at that point in time, and it was Hal's information and his interest in the 0 point energy and the consciousness research that actually started the theoretical framework for all of their remote
Mm-hmm.
viewing studies. And he was also an advocate for disclosure. So again,
Oh.
all of these things happen to come around, and he is very, very active still
Mm-hmm.
in this field, and he contributes to discussions on advanced technologies and non-human intelligence.
Okay.
So
Wow.
as we said, everything comes around and goes around.
Yeah.
So we are all connected, and you just never know.
Exactly.
So we also had, oh, bear with me because I
Yeah.
just lost my notes. Of course, we're going to blame it on Mercury
Of
retrograde
course,
here.
of course. But I think we had Russell Targ. I think Russell Targ and Hal Puthoff were the two main ones, people that were working at the Stanford Research Institute, if I'm not mistaken. And
Well, let me
yeah,
find my note here
yeah,
because, of course, like I said, it
yeah.
wants to
And let
go
me just see
someplace.
if we have. Oh, I have Bruce Cornett. Bruce says, I met Hal Puthoff at NIDS in 2004.
Oh,
Okay,
wow.
wow. That's
That's
pretty interesting, eh,
awesome.
Bruce? I mean, how was that? Was he a nice guy? Let us know.
Yeah, definitely.
Mhm.
You are correct.
Mhm.
Russell Targ was another individual.
Mhm.
He was a laser physicist and a remote viewing researcher who
Mhm.
happened to come into play. He had a physics background, and he helped to bridge the gaps between science and the psychic phenomena. So again, very much people who are looking into channeling the psychic abilities, intuitiveness, etc. He had some contributions where he co-led the experiments with Puthoff. They published all of their findings, and they challenged all of the conventional scientific views, which obviously it still does today.
Mhm.
I mean, there are still people, and please don't take me wrong when I say this. I know there are a lot of non-believers.
Mhm.
Has anybody said to me back 30 years ago, oh, you're going to be doing this, and this is something that you're going to have a gift for and a capability, I would have looked at them like they had two heads.
Okay.
I could never have seen myself looking at this.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't something I was ever expecting. Targ is also an author and an educator, and he's written extensively on remote viewing itself and emphasizes the potentials for personal insight and global awareness. And he also continues to inspire new generations of researchers and individuals with everything that is going on. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, many of these are very, very important people. Ingo Swann, we touched on him a few minutes prior. He is actually considered to be the father of remote viewing, and he was instrumental in developing controlled remote viewing, whereby they have specific protocols that are being followed. Things like the having the coordinates sealed in an envelope, where you will not have contact with anybody within so many hours prior to and after the sessions, et cetera, things along that line. We'll get into a little bit of that later on. Mm-hmm. He also worked with SRI and collaborated with the physicists so that he could create the structured methods. And he was leading the government interest with remote viewing. Mm-hmm. He also had psychic abilities, and he had many times through experimentation and training, he refined them. Mm-hmm. As I keep saying, practice, practice, practice. Mm-hmm. The more that you do it, the easier it is that it happens. It's a matter of quieting your mind. Sometimes it's a matter of getting into that theta state. But I know even for myself, a lot of times it happens without my even realizing it. Mm-hmm. But I've gotten to the point now where if I'm talking about something specific, I just zoom out into wherever it is. Mm-hmm. That's how quickly it happens. Yeah, I'm sitting right here, but it's going wherever else. Mm-hmm. Swann also has a lot of legacies. He has writings and teachings that are continuing to influence practitioners and researchers worldwide with regard to remote viewing.
And you know what's interesting about Ingo Swann? And yes, I know that he, helped to establish aspects of remote viewing, but he was an artist. And we've often said on the show, people who have a tendency to be spiritual workers,
creative,
artists,
yes.
creatives. We were talking last time about how different alien groups contact. We were talking about that a couple of Fridays ago about how aliens contact. Book through by Grant Cameron, he talks about how our alien groups contact musicians because they're open-minded, they're able to sort of connect.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't surprise me that as a prolific artist, that Ingo Swann was able to have those connections because he had some really sort of doozies. But he was able to sort of do this because he himself was already channeled. He was already open. You know what I mean?
Yes, 100%. Yeah. People who have a more creative mind, who are not afraid to open themselves up and to express themselves. And interestingly enough, I came across something the other day. Art in general, whatever you believe to be art to yourself, is a way of opening your mind. So if it is something that, whether it happens to be by music, whether you paint, whether you draw, whatever it is that you use for an art method, it can even be, writing poems. It's still art. You have the ability to be more open-minded because the mind works in a slightly different way than that of a very analytical individual.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that Ingo Swann, though, speaking of different groups, the different alien groups, I think he had his own experience. Didn't he? He had his own experience.
He absolutely did.
Yeah, you want to tell us about that?
Yes, I will. He actually had interdimensional and consciousness presentations, and during one of the sessions that he had, he talks about an unexpected encounter with extraterrestrials that became aware of his presence and that reacted to his actual presence. He did remote view the moon, apparently, according to his information. He is one of the few people that described structures on the moon, alien beings, and machinery on the moon. Now, keep in mind, this is in the 60s and the early 70s that he was talking about this, before they had actually been on the moon in any major way. Now, I will only bring it up simply because of the kind of show that we have. If you follow the astronauts, and there are two different theories. One of them states that the astronauts also saw extraterrestrial
Yeah.
beings on the moon, and that there were equipment and there were other things on the moon, but they were hush-hushed and they were not allowed to tell that information,
Yeah.
like so many other things. There's also a theory that the moon is actually hollow, and essentially there is equipment and there are all sorts of structures down inside of it.
Yeah,
So
and you know what's also interesting is I heard that during the moon landing, they had I think like a 2 or 3 minute moment where they had lost contact supposedly,
yes,
and that they'd
they
use
did.
that time in order to sort of pick up artifacts. Now I don't know if that's hearsay or not, but I heard that they'd use that time, they'd shut it off. Oh, we lost contact, but it was really a chance to pick up these artifacts because they saw all these structures, all these houses and things on the moon. You know.
Yeah, no, I had actually heard that as well. Unfortunately, who knows where these artifacts ended up at, but I do know for a fact that because many years ago when I was a young girl, I had the opportunity to go with an uncle of mine. He happened to live in Ohio, and they had, I believe it was, I believe it was Buzz Aldrin, if I'm not mistaken, that had some sort of there was a museum or something there. And my uncle actually had some inside information that he probably wasn't supposed to tell us, but I had actually heard that as well.
Okay.
So, mind you, as a child, he probably didn't ever think about things like that,
Yeah.
that a child's not going to remember that. But between he and my dad, there was some very interesting information that I had heard through the grapevines. Unfortunately, sadly, both of them have passed, but
But they're
my
still
dad
with you.
actually did see extraterrestrials, and he was at one of those. He was a medic in the army and told us many years ago that he actually helped to remove some of the bodies,
Oh,
some of the
really?
injured. Yeah.
Oh.
So I've got firsthand in my genes
Oh,
with regard to that.
wow.
And this is a first because I've never said this out publicly.
Okay,
A
thank
few
you.
few very trusted individuals are aware of that. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay,
But
wow. But hopefully
going
you
back
won't
to,
disappear.
I'm not going just to disappear because I have too many people who know who I am.
Exactly, exactly. So, moving on.
Swann, again, I mean, there's always going to be skeptics here and
Mm-hmm.
there,
Mm-hmm.
and they question the validity of his story. Of course, other than other people who have been able to remote view the same kind of information
Mm-hmm.
until somebody actually goes up there that is trusted again and isn't lying to us like the government. Nobody's going to really know the truth. But there were a number of different questions that were raised with regard to the story that he told, because of course, at that point in time, it did cause a lot of questions regarding what it was that he was dealing with,
Mm-hmm.
whether or not he was lying, whether there was real consciousness, awareness, human perception,
Mm-hmm.
etc.
Exactly.
So
Um,
we also have
mm-hmm.
an individual by the name of Pat Price, who, of all things, was a police officer who turned psychic. He was always capable of having a number of different psychic abilities, and he stunned researchers with his accuracy and details. He was one of the very remarkable remote viewers in the SRI program and experiments that they had. And he worked really, really closely with Swann, Puttoff, and Taggets at Stanford Research Institute. His sessions produced very highly detailed descriptions of secret military installations. So again, they're
Mm-hmm.
constantly battling back and forth, who's got the better equipment.
Mm-hmm.
Um, one of the ones was a Soviet Union site that it was later confirmed by the satellite images. So again, very, very detailed. And it depends. As you work on things, you do become more adept at the details. I mean, you might see a stick figure tree, but if you start concentrating on it, you might be able to see what it is specifically that, is it the leaves that somebody's focusing on? Is it the bark? Is it a squirrel sitting in the tree? It's just a matter of practice. That's all that it is.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, unfortunately for Price, a lot of his work is very, very controversial because it was very compelling. And the interesting thing and very sad is he had a sudden death. He had a death that was very mysterious circumstances in 1975.
Mm-hmm.
It's fueled a lot of speculation. And because he had such a high ranking in this program that he was in, the SRI, there was a lot of sensitive intelligence based projects. And essentially, they to this day do not know, whether he was actually killed by the agency, by other factions, that because he knew too much. But he did have a lot of impact on the intelligence programs that happened to come up afterwards. And he very much had an impact on the US specifically, relevant to their psychic research, because he was so accurate.
You know what I'd heard actually, what was actually kind of crazy, is that yes, he was an officer, and that he already was he already knew of his psychic ability like long before, like as a young man.
Yes.
And
Yes.
he was a dispatcher. And for those of you who work in like customer service or whatever, that sort of thing, a dispatcher is someone who gets a call and then they'll say, okay, they'll dispatch the police car to go here or there. And he says that when he would get the call, he was able to see in his mind's eye where to go, what it was. And he was able to send the car to, and don't forget that this is back in the 50s when he was a police officer, right? Because he only joined the Stanford Research Institute in the early 70s. But so in the 50s, he was working as a police officer. And it's during that time when there's no other forms of communication that he was able to actually send cars to get to the exact place where it needed to go, because he could see it in his mind. Can you imagine how effective the police would be if they could all see that,
Believe it or not, I know of a few people personally, personal friends of mine, who have actually helped the police, and they are psychic mediums. But what you just described is very much what happens to me when I do remote viewing, that I happen to discover quite by accident that I was doing. And I really, at that point, when I first started doing it, I had no idea it was remote viewing. I was just thinking, oh, okay, I'm able to picture this and that. And then I started researching more, and I went, oh my goodness, I am remote viewing.
Yeah, exactly.
So it was a little bit of a wake-up call to me. Pat Price, there's some more information that we've got about him.
Sure.
He actually was a very controversial individual because he was sent to spy for the CIA to a location in Alaska of a secret base that the Soviet Union had, and it was one of the targets. So essentially, his abilities were much more accurate than some of the other members that they had. And on one of his specific assignments that he got, he was asked to find a target, and his attention was actually, and this is a very interesting story, his attention was drawn away by something called an attractor, so that he did not look for the initial target, but he was actually sent to go and look at another area specifically. And it drew him to a section called the Alaskan Triangle. And in the Alaskan Triangle, he was actually in a trance at the time. Price mentioned that he saw an alien UFO buried deep in the mountain.
There you go.
And according to Price, there were very highly evolved humanoids that happened to be located there, and they were working with the military personnel. He had a strange device that he saw as well, and he wasn't sure what it was, but he believed that it might have been an atmospheric device that was monitoring the atmospheric conditions. And it was only days after that he actually died. He died in his hotel room in Las Vegas, very strange conditions. He was complaining about stomach aches and pains the night prior to that. And immediately after they found out that he had passed, his body was cremated. There was no autopsy, and his family was never ever notified. So that to me is a little bit
kind of
strange.
smells.
It kind of makes you wonder.
Yeah, that because you'd think to yourself, this guy is top of the line remote viewer. He is giving all kind of information, and the guy gets popped off. No, it's because when I heard that he found the alien base, okay, no, you got too close to the fire.
Coincidental. Yeah,
You got too close to the
absolutely. You know where
fire,
it's at.
and no, you know, and it's just no, no. And when I heard that, I said, yeah, no, that's the reason why he like poof, he died because like I mean he,
Absolutely.
you know, that's not going to happen. But it is what it is,
Well,
right?
unfortunately, I mean, and I know most of our viewers will be familiar with the show. I mean, there's the
Hmm.
George Norrie show,
Yeah.
um, and uh, I know I can't think of what his name was. There's another gentleman that used to host it, but I know because I listened to the show for many, many years.
What, like Art Bell, Coast to Coast?
Art Bell, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, Coast to Coast was the show's name.
Yeah.
I had it and then it
Yeah.
was
Yeah. Yeah.
gone because of course certain things don't want information to get out.
Exactly.
But we are tenacious and we will do it anyway. But on that show, I can remember Art Bell specifically saying several of their guests, and this has been over a number of years, mysteriously disappeared and happened to be
Yeah.
found dead. And it
Exactly.
is simply because they had too much
Yeah.
information.
Yeah, no, that happens all the time. And it's just kind of interesting that Pat Price would have been like, okay, you know, I'm supposed to go here, but no, I'm going to go here instead. And found out, and, you
Exactly.
know, imagine if back then, because like, I mean, this is like what, the late, like, yeah, the 70s, you know,
Would have been the 70s.
75.
Yeah,
That was just like, that was way too, and it's also the Cold War, right? Don't forget that in the Cold War,
absolutely.
they wanted to maintain all that kind of supremacy. They don't want the information going out, which I understand. I mean, I don't think you had to kill the guy for it, but I think I understand because they don't want the Russians to sort of get their hands on that kind of technology. I understand that, but
Ab
you know, I'm
absolutely.
sorry. He seems
Yeah,
like the
that's rather
capable
extreme.
guy. I don't know. You know, it's but I think we're at a good point. I can maybe read a couple more questions and then we can do our little
Sure,
exercise.
absolutely. I would love to do that.
Yeah. So I know I see a lot of interesting comments here. And I think that Bruce was saying that, Bruce, I think we sort of left off with you here because I had asked about what it was like. You met him. I think it was Russell Targ. He said, very nice guy. I was deputy administrator at the NIDS then, National Institute for Discovery Science. And,
Very interesting. Every
so
time
that's
we
kind of
chat, Bruce,
interesting.
I find out more about you.
Yeah, exactly, Bruce. You have to sort of come by and we find out more about you. And let me see what else we got. So we have Kelly here. Oh my God, Expedition X has the secrets of the pyramids on now. Okay, so secrets of the pyramids, Kelly. There you go. And and Bruce says I met Ingo Swann at Bordentown, New Jersey in 2002. Okay, that'd be interesting. Can you
Wow.
tell us what he was like too? Like, I mean, that's kind of nice. And I have Susan Johnson says here there's an alien base on Blackwood on the backside. I think what she said here, backside of the
Yes,
moon
on the backside of the moon.
in the
Yes,
Pickett region.
absolutely.
Yeah, and I mean I think that's sort of going back. Isn't that sort of going back to like
That is going
the
back to the
Nazis? No.
60s. Yeah, absolutely. It's
No?
going back prior to the 60s. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, because a lot of people have, you know, and I think even Ingo Swann, I think he was the one when he saw that. I think it was on, if I'm not mistaken, allegedly, but I think that was also on the backside of the moon, and that's what he saw when he saw these beings when he did his own remote viewing, and he saw these beings, and these beings were aware of his presence. Now that I find crazy because like, I mean,
Yes,
usually when you do
absolutely.
remote viewing, nobody's be able to see you. But I remember him saying how he was in a room and he saw these beings, and all of a sudden one of the beings turned around and was aware and could see. So like they could
Yes.
see his soul. I
Well,
don't
and
know.
that's what it's interesting because it brings us back around to the question that we had earlier. I believe it was from Kelly,
Yeah.
who was asking, is it similar to having an OBE? Sometimes it can be. It depends on whether your soul is physically there or not.
Hmm.
Because I have physically been on board, I'll call them UFOs rather than UAPs because I
Hmm.
grew up with UFOs,
Yeah.
but
UFOs.
where I know that I am specifically there with other individuals and with other alien beings.
Hmm.
So, I mean, that's the difference, but it's a very, very fine line. Usually, if you are cognizant of it, though, you are probably in a theta state, or you could be in a very, very deep meditation state. So it's
Hmm.
as I said, it's a very fine line.
Yeah. And I know, Aldosaurus, you were saying, can we talk about the anomalies, about the set anomalies? I think there's a lot going on the backside of the moon that we'd have to come back another time to talk about that, because I think there's a lot on the moon. I think, it's a good idea. I think we should do a show on that. How about that?
Oh, there's lots of stuff because I have some firsthand info about that one as well.
Yeah, and so we'll have you back to talk about that. But there's a lot going on.
Well,
on
by
the moon.
then we may have some other information coming in, depending on what happens with 3i Atlas.
Exactly,
as well.
Exactly. So, but yeah, the moon is chock-a-block, and I think I remember Carol Rosen, who used to work with Werner von Braun from Germany, who had come over with Operation Paperclip, and she worked with him from like I think the late '60s to the early '70s and '80s with Werner von Braun, and she said that they were told that they had to airbrush out any anomalies.
They did, and actually, I know a few other individuals that have pictures of the original structures on the moon and the different structures. And it's not just the moon. I mean, there are other planets
Mars.
that the same thing has happened. Mars is another big one.
Yeah.
But yes, 100%. And if you look back at, I mean, yes, we have Mandela effect. But if you look back at many of the pictures that are in the old books, you can see where there are differentiations. The other thing that's interesting is if you look at the color of the atmosphere and where the craters are, there are significant changes now. And I'm sorry, but the rover is not making those kind of changes.
Yeah, no. And the atmosphere, I'd actually heard someone who, a filmmaker, he was, and I'm not sure if it was David Sprague or who it is, but he says that when they show pictures of Mars, they crank up the red hue. It's not really, it doesn't look like that.
No,
not at all. It looks like if you're in Nevada.
I heard the exact same thing.
It looks exactly like if you're in Nevada and has blue skies and everything. So I don't know why all the BS with like the red Mars moon rock and
because they don't want us to know what's actually there.
Exactly.
Like every place else.
Like everywhere
but we are learning and we are awakened and we are believers.
Exactly. And one more sort of interesting comment here. I think it was from DH4451. He says, the movie The Men Who Stared Goats is a movie about remote viewing experiments, which is true. That was a movie that came out, I think, if I'm not mistaken, that sort of came out in 2009. So it's going back quite a bit. And that was a movie that came out that talked about the army trying to experiment. And the whole idea is that being able to kill a goat just with staring at it. So that was, So that, I mean, I don't think, I hope not. I haven't seen the movie, but I hope not anybody killed goats just like that. But I think that was the whole point, is that they were trying to build these sort of soldiers that would be able to, be able to go around and kill people. Just
the mind consciousness.
Yes.
The mind. Yeah. Mind you, they've been doing that in several other countries for many, many years. It's just not something that you hear very often.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that, did you want to go over the techniques of remote viewing, or do you want to do
No, we'll do the techniques first.
Okay.
And then we'll do a little experiment.
Okay, great.
See, kind of go on to the rest of it.
Okay.
So there are several different things that are relevant to the technique. So I'll go over them first, and then I'm going to sort of go off into little stages of it. So when you're doing a controlled remote viewing, it's essentially where it's a very structured method, and it was developed by Swann and Pudov. And what it is the perception, and then they sketched, and then they analyzed what the results of the sketches were. There is associative remote viewing, which is usually where you predict the outcomes by associating the targets with binary choices. And a lot of it is financial forecasting. That would be more like a targeting. There is a mental preparation, which we are going to do prior to this. It includes the meditation, the quieting of the mind, and then setting the clear intentions before the session, which is, as I said, that is what we are going to do. And then with regard to the tools and protocols specifically, a lot of times it involves blind targeting.
Mm-hmm.
I have a specific target in mind. And then many times there are feedback loops and there's strict documentation. We're not going to use any of that. However, you will be more than encouraged to be able to send your information into Crystal,
Mm-hmm.
and let her know what it is that you're picking up. So we'll
Mm-hmm.
see how good people happen to be about picking things up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when you're looking at your accuracy and the repeatability of
Mm-hmm.
something. And as I said, I have actually practiced telepathy and remote viewing with a few other people.
Mm-hmm.
And I do know that I have quite accurate skills,
Okay.
which I find interesting because I've had them verified by other individuals and by information that's come out.
Mm-hmm.
Although sometimes I do have to wait for the information. So sometimes with the target, many times it's something that it's a fully blinded target. So the participant has no idea whatsoever what the target happens to be. It could be, as I said, it could be blocked in, it might be in an envelope that's sealed, it could be behind a screen, etc. In this particular case, I do know what the target is going to be. The application of the remote viewing is essentially everybody is going to be asked to close your eyes and take 4 deep breaths. We're not going to do this right now, but I'm just preparing you for what it is that we're going to do. And then concentrate on your thoughts. I am then going to project something to you that is going to be the target. So that's the mental representation of it, or the cognition thought process. You are going to monitor what feeling you might happen to get. So your emotion response, when you believe that you are experiencing the feeling of it. Then you are going to have an activation of the experiential and intuitive area, and where you are going to start seeing and visualizing within your mind what it is that is being sent. That's where your intuitive emotional intelligence comes in. And then you are going to actually decide what it is that you're seeing. So, and that's going to be for the purpose of guessing the specific target. So, having said that,
Mm-hmm.
everybody's ready because we're going to do a little experiment. So if I
Okay.
could have, Crystal, if I could please have you
Mm-hmm.
clear our energy with your lovely
Of
bowl.
course, of course. Let me just sort of get myself sort of set
Settled
up
in.
here
Absolutely.
and work on the sound here because I need to do the sound. There we go. So I will do that. And then, so everyone, we are going to be just taking 4 deep breaths, but I'm going to ring the sound bowl 3 times, and then I will let Angela lead the way. Okay, so here we
Thank
go.
you. So if everyone would please close their eyes if they have not already done so, I am going to have you take a deep breath to a count of 5 in through your nose, hold it for 5, and then you are going to blow it out slowly through your mouth for another count of 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and hold your breath. And then blow out through your mouth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and have a slight pause. We are going to repeat in through your nose. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold it. And now we are going to exit through the mouth again. Blow out for a count of 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Number 3, in through your nose. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold your breath for a moment. Out through your mouth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Last breath. In through your nose. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold for a moment. And out through your mouth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Have your eyes remained closed, please. I'd like to have everyone take one deep breath in and just relax your shoulders and your muscles, your arms, your neck as you let it out. Settle into your chair. Listen to the tone of my voice. I am sending you a thought pattern. Some of you may have it right away. Some of you may take a little bit of time to receive it. I will not give you any hints as to what it happens to be. And we're just going to sit in this stillness for a few moments. Okay, I heard somebody get back to me. So somebody saw what it is. Mm-hmm. I don't know who it is that's getting back to me. We're going to sit like this for a few moments, and I'm going to concentrate an image to you specifically of what it is. And then once we do this for a few moments, I'm going to have you very slowly open your eyes, but I'm going to have you feel into your body as to whether you're feeling anything specific while you are picturing an image that I am sending to you. And once we open our eyes fully, if you have an image in your mind, I would like it to be, you can type it out to Crystal. I mean, unfortunately, we can't just shout them back and forth, but if you can type them into the chat, that would be absolutely wonderful. And we will see how accurate we might be.
Yeah. Type it into the chat.
I just heard another answer as well, which is very interesting because it's very close to what it is that I sent out.
Okay.
So somebody out there has abilities. Otherwise, I wouldn't be hearing what you're saying. I'd like while you are keeping your eyes closed, just to take note of any feelings, specifically if you have any tingly feelings, if you happen to have any cool or warm feelings, if you are getting any sort of pressure in your third eye or in your crown or in your heart area, or if you happen to have truth bumps or goosebumps. And we're just going to keep this for a couple more minutes. Okay, interesting. I've got somebody who's sending me something. If you can all hold whatever the picture is in your mind now, we're going to take another deep breath in and blow it out through our mouth. And then slowly come back to center and presence. Slowly open your eyes. And if you wouldn't mind typing into the chat what it is that you believe you are seeing.
Would you like to do a clearing of the bell again?
Yes, I think that would be a wonderful idea. And I think at the very end, given that we have so many viewers, we will also do a cord cutting.
Okay, great.
I have to say, I'm very, very curious to see what individuals have put forth.
Are you able to see the chat?
You know what? I can if I go into
yeah, I can read it out to you, but I just wanted to see if you could see it, because if you can't, I'll read it to you. But
I can actually pull it up. Just give me 1 second here.
Okay. Some interesting answers here.
Okay, interesting. Let's see. Oh, interesting. Okay, so I'm hearing different people here that are talking about things that they are feeling. So tingling on the back of the neck, sweaty, things like that. Oh, okay. Looks like somebody might be doing their own remote viewing.
Okay.
Oh, okay. NEVK, so NevK 87. I heard you. I heard you send this to me. You are 100% correct. Oh, okay. You are very close to correct, but I heard you send this to me. She said, or he said, they said, it was a circle with the flower of life. It is a circle. It's not the flower of life, but I heard your telepathic sending. I truly did.
And he said, so further down, I was getting tingling on the left temple, pressure of my third eye. So that's pretty good.
Yes, very interesting. Yeah. Let me see if I can. So are there any other people out there that would like to hazard a guess at what it was?
Here, Bruce says thousands of carpet flowers in the desert. That's a lovely image. And then somebody here.
Well, it's funny because I'll show you what the image was, because it's actually behind me.
Sure. So
let me see if I can do this properly. Oh, actually, I just saw it. This came up into focus.
Okay.
Let's see if I can get it to focus there.
Almost.
I thought I could.
I saw it briefly, and I just sort of like, Can you bring the camera a little closer? Because I think I saw
that's
it.
That's what I was trying to do, but I wanted to.
Can you? You know what? There. If you can turn off your background, we'll get it right away. If you turn off,
I know. Then you're going to see all the rest of the mess.
Oh, good. Okay, so it's like I think it's a tree.
It is a big tree in a circle, and it's got
Yggdrasil. No,
it's well, it's basically the tree.
The Idris. Oh, there we. Okay, almost. But if Yggdrasil, as in the tree between the. There you go. Yeah. That's it.
That is what I was sending to everyone.
It's like Lord of the Rings, yeah.
So, well, it's funny because it is a very ancient-looking tree.
Yeah.
But what I was sending initially was the fact of the circle
Mm-hmm.
was sort of an afterthought, but it was the fact that it has all of the tree, all of the branches at the top, and then the roots that are actually going down. But the tree, when I was picturing it,
Mm-hmm.
and I think what Bruce was picking up was leaves on the ground.
Oh, okay.
But it was interesting when I saw the tree of life or the
Mm-hmm.
flower. What was it here? How did you word it? The
Yggdrasil, the tree, it's like based on, let me just see if I can sort of pull it up
It's
here.
an ancient, no, I know
Yeah.
what you're talking about. Yeah,
Norse.
with the flower of life. When you said
Yeah.
circle and flower of life, I totally picked that up. Somebody, though, sent me star. I know
Oh,
somebody sent me star because I
okay.
heard it.
I think I have an image here that we can all sort of look at here. Let me just,
Very good. I hope that everyone enjoyed that as an exercise because it was certainly interesting. I've never done it in this big of a group. You saw the circle first. Lovely.
okay, I think I have it right here.
And it was
And
circle, and then it went to the flower of life. So, I'm sorry, I don't know. I'll just say Nev K. Um, so Nev, I'm curious with the image that you saw, and you said that it went into the flower of life. Was it similar at all to the tree that I showed? Because I know what the flower of life looks like, and it's
mm-hmm.
funny because when I got flower of life, what I saw was the tree of life that you generally see, and I have one in here someplace. I just don't know
Mm-hmm.
where it is. But it's more of a gem. Okay, I see it up on the screen, very similar to what it is that you just put up on the screen.
Yeah.
So if
Yeah.
that's what you were getting, then definitely.
Yeah.
Oh, you're very welcome. Very similar. Perfect. Well, there you go. So we have somebody out in our audience who has some gifts there. So if you ever want to practice telepathy, as I said, it is something that I practice with another few individuals, and it's a great exercise to do.
Oh, well,
Now,
that's really cool.
so what did you get, Crystal? You didn't say anything.
I didn't because I'm sort of focused on the show and everything. So unfortunately, my head wasn't. I don't have the luxury of tuning out. But like, I mean, I think that if I was quiet and didn't have to do the show, because that's another thing with remote viewing, you can't be focused
Yes.
on other things because you're going to have a lot of
No, that
interruptions.
is very true.
So one of the
That is
biggest
very,
things
very true.
about remote viewing is you have to be calm, quiet at home, and have nothing else, no appointments, no nothing, and then your mind can totally focus. Because I know that my with the chatter in my head, it would just be a lot of clowns or something that I would see. A lot of clowns sort of like, look, I already have the hair, so like, I mean,
Oh my goodness. Well, in honesty though, and this
hmm
this is going to sound really funny,
hmm
many times when I remote view, because I am telepathic, what happens is I will literally be talking to an individual, or I might be talking on the phone, or I might be thinking about something.
hmm
And what happens is it automatically shoots over to whatever that other individual is or to that remote viewing. So I
okay,
don't have to necessarily be quiet. I can be in a conversation with somebody and it just happens. That is how quick it happens nowadays for me. It's very, very strange. I'm still trying to get used to it, but
yeah,
I just accept it for what it
hmm
is.
okay,
But it's
wow,
a very interesting gift. I see we have a bunch more people here that are sending
hmm
information. Wavy pattern.
hmm
Interesting.
And yeah, and Kelly said the same thing. I usually have to be still and quiet for at least 20 minutes to listen to binaural. Yeah, that's exactly me. My head is too busy with the chatter and like the clown show. And I need to really be, relaxed or something. If I was sitting in a hot bath and I had like just a candle or something, I'd probably be
Yes.
a lot more,
That is another one of the methods that
hmm
I have been taught is to stare into a candle flame and then just sort of soften the gaze so that you can look into the candle flame and concentrate on that
hmm
because it takes your mind, it gives you something to focus on, but it takes your mind into a totally different location and
hmm
place. And then to sort of, just softly close your eyes, obviously with safe burning practices in place. Um, but it's just a totally different method of being able to concentrate on things. And
hmm
it's, there are several other methods as well. So it all depends on what an individual is used to doing. we've got an interesting comment here from Linda. And she says she saw something very different and someone was communicating. Her entire body tingled. Does that mean maybe different frequencies? I'd be curious to find out what it was that you felt and what part of your body was tingling. Very often, and I was feeling tingling as well, because I do experience frequencies very differently than most people because my vibrations have been gotten to a much higher level. But I'd be very, very curious to see what it is that you were experiencing more so and what it was that you actually saw. Because it could be something that was in mind as well. Or it could have been because, as I said, I had at least 3 individuals that said something back and forth to me. And it's only because we are all in this together right now that I can say it could have been somebody sending communication across.
Yeah.
Or it could have been you intercepting as well.
Exactly.
And I'm very curious, do you, Linda or Nev, do either of you happen to although Soros, I saw a copper coin, but it was AOL. That's funny. Was it a penny by chance? I'm very curious, do either of you that happen to experience this, do you have prior knowledge of telepathy or of OBE or of remote viewing?
Well, definitely impressive, Nev K. I think you win the prize here. Really, very impressed with that. Well done. And everybody else too. Everybody did good tonight because a lot of people are saying they saw a circle and all this.
Well, and that's just it. I mean, you have to realize it's practice, because I'm guaranteeing most of you have never ever done remote viewing. And it's not like I practice it to a huge degree, but I am very familiar with it now with all of the things that I've done. But I stumbled onto it quite by accident. So, if you're somebody who does esoteric things like, tarot reading, or you happen to channel for people, or that you've got psychic abilities, and you start seeing flashes of pictures in your mind, that is technically a way of remote viewing. And that's what I had not realized initially when I started doing this.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I started looking into it more in depth that I understood this is remote viewing. And then it got more and more in depth and was really just absolutely mind-blowing.
Wow. Well, that's really interesting. So, you know what? Last but not least, let's look at some of the real world applications of remote viewing. Now, I know the program has ended with the Stanford Research Institute and at least with the government. And I think the Stanford Research Institute is probably still doing some of their own research in their own way. But now that this whole called, remote viewing program is over, I think there are still some, real world applications that we can do with.
Yes, absolutely. There are real world applications. Yeah. And I mean, as we've discussed throughout the program, they are still using these programs for remote viewing to be able to discover things. I mean, yes, we have Google Earth, but it only deals with Google Earth. So they are still using remote viewers to locate. I can picture him and I cannot think of his name. There's a very well documented individual that I happen to follow, who I probably have in my email right now. And he definitely has remote viewers on his panel of individuals. And what they do is they will do viewings of different sites. They will do viewings of UFOs. They will do viewings of the moon and of Mars. And it's absolutely fascinating. And he has them come on and they will actually speak about what it is. And this is current. This is stuff that's happening now, right now. People that are viewing AI Atlas, for instance, or 3i Atlas, for instance. So yes, there are definitely applications for remote viewing. Not to mention, there's also, we still have government issues that are going on back and forth. And, there's always going to be that war between government factions and military. We also know that there are still, and I hate to say it and admit it, but there are still military bases who are using remote viewing and PSYOP programs because they want to know what is going on, and they're trying to contact individuals that are gifted. They're trying to contact, alien bases. They're trying to locate in general. So anytime that there's locate missions, yes, we have all of this wonderful technology, but the other thing to remember is, our very talented extraterrestrial cousins that happen to be here have far greater technology and, advances than we could ever imagine. So if we can start to learn our telepathic abilities and our remote viewing abilities and our psychic abilities that we actually have, we're going to be able to communicate with them even better than we do now.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that is a big, big part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, also, I think that there's also the fact that we can use it also just for self-discovery as well. I think that that's what's interesting about remote viewing is just, if you want to know information about if you have to travel somewhere, if you want to know about what's happening in a certain part of the world, just for your own sort of self-discovery. I think it's great.
Yes, absolutely. And, self-discovery and even for fun, like just to be able to practice and to learn, as I said, it can be something as simple if you want to practice these things, just get a friend. If you happen to have somebody that you're close with that you can say, hey, I want to practice this just for the heck of it. And if you don't have somebody, you could take something like a deck of cards, take the aces out and literally shuffle them up, keep them face down. Take a look at it many times because we hold energy in our hands. You can take your hand, put it over top or hold it in your hand, put it, if you need to, put it up against your third eye. You can do that kind of a practice all by yourself. Or if you're somebody that wants to be a little bit more ingenious, make pictures on the cards, recipe type cards, the little, 3x2 cards, draw different symbols on it, triangle, star, circle, whatever, shuffle them up and put them down there. I mean, you can watch programs, and somebody asked early on in the show, what kind of practices are there for remote viewing and what can you, can I teach remote viewing? I'm sure I probably could. There's all sorts of information out there.
Absolutely.
But if you want somebody to physically give you that intuitiveness feeling, it's better to do that with somebody specifically, because then, if you need a little hint or you can, if they ask questions, you can answer yes or no. Makes it a little bit easier. I mean, to be honest, the target that we had was actually quite involved. So considering that it is a full tree with roots in a circle, that's a very involved target.
Yeah.
The fact that we did have individuals that got it that close, that's quite the feat.
That's really good.
So kudos to you.
Yeah.
Kudos to you.
Absolutely. Well, you know what? I think that we had an amazing trip around the sun here because we looked at it from all different angles. And I feel that, again, as Angela's saying, you can find a lot of information out there on how to do remote viewing. You can have somebody put something in an envelope or something in a box, and a friend can do this with you, and then you can try to figure out what's going on. You can also use it, like, say, for example, I want to know where my kid is. You can do remote viewing on that.
Yes, you can. Absolutely.
Where's that guy?
Yes. Yes.
You can do tarot too,
when you're remote viewing.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you get a little more than you bargained for.
Exactly.
As I have learned personally.
But even
it was not intentional.
Things, I know. But even little things like, where's the bus? I'm waiting for the bus. You can sort of like, why not? And little things like that. I mean, you could use it for like I said, for more in-depth excuse me, more in-depth self-exploration. But I think that as we become more and more upgraded with a lot of the Schumann resonance and with a lot of the solar flares activity that's going on, and I always keep saying again and again on this show, next year, the year after, is going to be some very, very high energy activity on this planet. And I think that it's good to do these types of exercises because it'll help you to calm your mind, help you to find a center. And, excuse me. And it'll help you to be able to take in some of these energies and to use them in ways that are constructive, sort of like channel all that instructive energy that's coming in and use it for your own benefit. You know what I mean? So I think it's a really great way. And even it's a great way just, in terms of like, as a precursor to meditation, just to sort of like be quiet and to meditate on something that you really want. And also, if you can... I'm thinking if you can sort of like see different timelines and you can focus, you can actually bring stuff onto your timeline. You can actually shift the timelines.
You totally
and
can do
say,
that.
Well, I want to be, this is what I see and this is what I want. I'm going to shift my consciousness into this timeline and be on that timeline. And this is go towards what I want. So in a way, quantum jumping. Which is
it's quantum jumping, but it's also part of the whole manifestation process.
Exactly.
Once you get to a certain level and you start being able to manifest your reality, we all do it. It's like, oh, I would like to have a parking spot right up front.
Exactly.
But there's so much more than that goes along with it. So once you can truly visualize and you can see, like we were talking about with the athletes who are winning, when you can start seeing yourself doing that on a regular basis and you can physically put yourself into that situation and you can put the emotion into it as well. That is what the frequency that the universe resonates with. And that's when things and miracles truly start to happen. It really is. It does happen.
Wow, that is amazing. I want to just read one last comment here from Kelly. She says, I've been on this journey since 2017 after my first concussion. Oh, poor Kelly. And I was able to hear and feel things stronger. I got downloads and warnings from people on the jab before it dropped. So thank you so much for sharing that with us, Kelly. And I see here... we have a couple of other people sort of like talking about past lives and everything. So it's quite a quick, interesting discussion going on.
Definitely.
Exactly. And you can do that too. You can remote back into the past as much as in the future. So you can go into the past and sort of see stuff that would like to know more information about. If you have an issue, but like what were my parents up to? Remote view it. Why not? You know what I mean?
Well, many times, and I have done this, and again, I didn't realize it was remote viewing when it happened. It was just, I was able to view past lives, and what that accomplished for me was to realize where some of my healing needed to be from and where the wounds had originally stemmed from.
Okay.
But it also gave me information as to what my ancestry was and why I am doing the work that I am today, and how crucial it is. So, I mean, I've had many past lives that I've seen, and I continue to have more things unlocked as gifts. So I don't know, next time we chat, I don't know what gifts I'm going to have.
Okay. Well, but if you're going to be floating, 2-3 feet off the ground and have like lights coming out of your eyes, I'll be really impressed, Anyway, I wanted to say thank you, Angela. Thank you so much. As always, it's always such a pleasure to have you on the show. You are so amazing. And we always have so much fun together. And the energy is always high. I don't know. The energy is always high with you. And so I just wanted to say thank you for being here with us and giving us a great presentation and to talk with us about remote viewing and to give us different ideas of how we can use remote viewing for our own personal self-development. You know what I mean? It's not just
my pleasure.
Working for the CIA. It's just about personal development.
No, absolutely not. One thing I will put out there, and I normally wouldn't, but I'm going to, is if anyone in the chat is looking to do remote viewing or telepathy and you want to work with me at all, just put a little note in there and I will get in touch with you. I promise I will. Crystal can vouch for me. It's not the first time that I've done this. Something that I would love to help you, and I can put you in touch with other groups where we do have things like that are going on.
Absolutely. And I think we already have Angela's information in the description below, but Angela, can you just sort of give us where people can contact you again? I think you gave us I could give you I actually have a WhatsApp now as well. Okay, great.
Yeah, I do have a WhatsApp. Okay. I will give you my email. I just have to, it's readings and Reiki .byangela@gmail.com.
Okay.
You can also get in touch with me, and I'm putting myself out there, but I'm already on X, and I've been contacted by lots of people on X because
Mm-hmm.
I am an experiencer.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you can get in touch with me under, bear with me here. I never have to call myself.
Yeah, I know.
Um, it's, it's area 647
Mm-hmm.
581
Mm-hmm.
4811.
Okay, that's great. So we'll put
Just
that.
no prank phone calls,
No,
guys.
please,
Okay,
guys.
enough of those as
Yeah,
it
let's
is.
not do that. Okay, please, please don't do that because that's just not cool. So I just wanted to say thank you, and again, everybody, please, the next time you're coming on, please ask for notifications on YouTube. To notify you of the meetings that are coming up because it helps the analytics of the show and it helps us to sort of find out more about the audience and where you're coming from and all that. So that really helps us out. Don't forget that we will have Angela and Susan Johnson and members of MUFON coming back on this Friday, December 19th. We are going to be discussing 3i Atlas. So I hope you'll be there to sort of join the show because it's going to be wild. At this
Oh,
point,
we're
it's
going to
going to be
have
really
some
crazy.
major info. Actually, that is the day that 3i Atlas is expected to be closest to Earth,
Exactly.
to be honest. And who
Exactly.
knows what kind of channels I'll get from them before then.
Exactly. So if you really want to be part of the party and you want to sort of be part of this all thing, please join us on that show on Friday, December 19th. And we can talk more and have a really, really brilliant conversation with everybody. So I want to say thank you again, Angela, for being with us. I truly appreciate you
You are
coming on the
so
show
very
again. We just
welcome.
love having you here. I want to say thank you to everybody who took part today. And we had some really great comments in the chat. It was been great. And I look forward to seeing you next week, but I also look forward to seeing you on December 19th when we talk about 3i Atlas live. We're doing this live. So we're doing it live now, but we're going to be looking at 3i Atlas as it's moving around. So it should be a really, really bombastic show. So I hope to see you then. So thanks again, everybody, for being with us tonight. Thank you, Angela. Absolutely sending you love.
Absolutely.
And
Thank you.
yeah. And we look forward to seeing you next week. And also, guys, don't forget we have a discussion group coming up. We've just launched a new discussion group. It's going to be on Thursday, November 27th. We're going to be meeting with Miss Karen Holton, who is an experiencer. She's going to be talking about her book, Transdimensional, Meet the New Neighbors. So that'll be very interesting to be able to speak with her directly. So send me an email on Meetup. And we can put you with the discussion group. So I hope to see you there. That discussion group is starting at 7 p.m. All right. So that's 7 p.m. Thursday, November 27th. We're going to be having a discussion group with Karen Holton at 7 p.m. So I hope to see you there. But if not, I'll see you next week. Thank you, guys, and have a wonderful evening. Bye.
Have a great evening, everyone.
Yeah.